Hey guys, welcome back to the Fulco. It's been a little while. Obviously, it's been the international break, and so there's not been a great deal to talk about without any Tottenham Hotspur games. And I'm sure everybody gets their news from loads of sources. You don't need it all rehashed by me. So just doing a video today, kind of looking ahead, looking at a few bits and pieces that we want to focus on for Tottenham over the next kind of month, this really busy month that's coming up with something like 11 games in 38 days, I think it is. And what's going to be really important to us having a successful kind of end of year period. At the moment, would we say, obviously going into the international break off a really poor result and a poor performance against Ipswich, Spurs Twitter goes into meltdown as it does seemingly, once a fortnight. And then kind of in that vacuum, in the absence of any actual football to talk about, we've had lots going on at the club, and it's led to quite a negative feeling and quite a, kind of downcast couple of weeks. But would we say that Tottenham Hotspur is in a particularly bad position? I don't think so. Given how concertinaed and how tight the league is at the minute, I don't think Tottenham are a million miles away. And yes, we are continuing to be completely inconsistent with a last five win-loss. And we show ourselves capable of playing really, really well in some games and being really, really poor in others, and not necessarily in the ways that you would expect. Our away form remains a bit of a concern, but we've still managed to have pockets where we've done okay. Going away from home in the Europa League with a much changed team and getting results apart from against Gala. Going to Man United, getting a result against City in the Cup. These are all games that you don't necessarily put us down to have good games, good performances and get results, but we are, which is different, and it's a change and it is a step forward. But then we are struggling. We're not beating Ipswich in a match where we absolutely should have beaten Ipswich. There's no reason we should be outfought in that game. We looked lacklustre against Crystal Palace. We're dropping points where we shouldn't really be dropping points, and it's really hard to kind of pinpoint what that's coming from. I think leadership is one of the things that we've talked about, and I still am not convinced that across the squad that we've got, with the amount of youth and then the profile of the first teamers that we've got, I'm not sure that leadership is there. Whether it can be developed is another thing, but I don't currently see it in terms of player profiles who can step forward and take control and really lead this team out of difficult patches. So that's definitely something I'd like to see a bit more of, and I'd be very interested. It can be very difficult if you imagine a team dynamic and player dynamics. If you've always been a certain type of player, you are the person you are, and you've always been the way you've been within a setup, it can be very difficult to kind of think to yourself, okay, no, actually I'm going to step forward and I'm going to take a leadership role if you've never had a leadership role, if you've never been that player within a group. So it's something that coaching staff can try to draw out of people, can try to create by having the leadership group and fostering that there. I'm still not sure that among the players that we've got, that is something we can lean on, or perhaps not this season. I think there are players who can lead by example. Sonny, Bentancur, these are players who can lead by example in their performances. But I'm still not sure whether they, will be the ones who can drag an entire team through in other ways, especially if the game isn't going in their favour on the pitch. So this is definitely something I'll be really, really interested to see the dynamics and see how the players come across for the rest of the season, to see what Ange and his team are doing about that. We won't get a great deal of insight from the outside, but you might see bits of it on the pitch as you're watching the game. Obviously, it means you miss the football while you're looking around for who's reacting to what and who's shouting at who and who's pointing and gesticulating. But, it's all interesting stuff from a coaching perspective. And then, just who's speaking, who's talking in the media, who's coming to face the cameras, all of those things. You can kind of glean little bits from the outside to see who's developing, who's stepping forward and who's changing. I certainly think that Mickey van der Ven is one of the first players I can think of who is growing in that, and I think he could be one of the first to grow into that role. I still don't see Kuti as a leader in those respects. He's a phenomenal player on his day, but I'm still not sure about him. He's kind of like a quiet, introverted assassin figure within the team, where I think if everything's ticking, he's in there and he's smashing and destroying and winning and doing brilliant things and, you know, distributing with high quality. But I don't see him dragging other players up. I'm not sure it's in his wheelhouse. So I'm excited to see Mickey's evolution on those lines. I'd be really keen to see if Pap can go from kind of young boy joker to a bit more of a leadership role. But I think also that will come potentially with a change of role for him. I do see potential for him in the six, but it will need to be worked on. It's not something that I think we will see a lot this season. Potentially with Bentancur's ban, there will be opportunities, but I think I'd much rather see Archie Gray start to get minutes, and obviously Basuma is going to be first choice in that deep lying position. So it's all very interesting. So that's one of the key things I want to see, is a bit more leadership from the playing staff, a bit more drive to get us over the line and to get the performances. And when a performance isn't happening, who's out there trying to get a performance out of the group? And if I go to some of the more successful teams, you don't need to have been the best player, and you don't even need to have been having a particularly good game to be good at doing that. I go to Jordan Henderson, who, to all intents and purposes, is a fairly limited member of a very successful Liverpool team. He's by no means the most talented player in there, but he was a leader. There's no two ways about it. He was a leader. He could have been having a terrible game himself, giving the ball away a lot, running all over the place, like an upgraded version of Michael Brown. For those old enough to have watched Michael Brown play for Spurs. But he was a leader, and you need players like that. So I'm looking for players who can step up and who can feel that legitimacy to kind of lead this Tottenham team. But it's entirely possible we do also need to bring in leadership. That will be something I'm sure that the scouting team, the recruitment team are looking at as well. So want to see that going forward. Next kind of few games, I want to see performances. As ever, performances are what matter, and then you expect and hope that results will follow. I think the Man City game is obviously one of those. You've absolutely no idea. People making predictions left, right and centre. I've got no clue what Man City team will turn up and which Tottenham team and which performance we're going to put out there, especially given all the injuries we've got. So it's very hard to say what's going to happen and what kind of result we get out of that game. But all I really want to see as a first game back after a terrible result going into the international break is the level of performance. Go out there, really perform. I go back to the game at the end of last season where Man City came to us, that much contested game where we didn't, in theory, want to win the game against City because it would have handed Arsenal the advantage in the title race. But we actually played quite well. We changed things up a little bit and we actually played quite well in the game. We didn't get out with a result, but I wouldn't, if it wasn't for all the hoo-ha around the game, I wouldn't have been too disappointed in that performance. And actually fine margins, the Sonny 1v1, we had chances in that game. So what I want to see us do is go to Man City, put on a performance and, let the cards fall where they may. And whatever result we get, and that's absolutely fine. But if I can walk away feeling comfortable that we really did put on a performance, even if we don't get a result against a very good team, despite the run that they've been on, that will be okay. I think we have to continue that. We now need to show consistency of performances going forward. But if you look at the games that are coming up after that, these are the games we need to start getting over the line. If we are taking a step forward now, I've talked about it before, there will still be stutters. There will still be ups and downs. We're only in the middle of our second season with Ange, and there's going to be that element of inconsistency. It's been too inconsistent for my liking. but there's still going to be that element of inconsistency going forward. So what I want to see is a run of performances, but post Man City, there's quite a few games in there that we need to get over the line. We need to get those results. So we've got Man City followed by Roma in the Europa League. Now, Roma are no great shakes. If you look at them, they're kind of very up and down. There's a couple of very good players who are basically keeping them afloat this season, but they're not having a great season. I know it's a very tough game, but even with a change side, I expect a slightly higher level of performance than we've put out, certainly than the Galatasaray game. But again, results potentially less critical. Put out a performance and let's see where we get to. But then after that, we've got Fulham and Bournemouth. These are games that I want to see consistency in performance, high level performance, but we need to get over the line. We need to get points on the board. It's a results business. It's all very well laying foundations and getting things right, and it's going to take time, and it's going to take more recruitment, and it's going to take, character and attitude, but we need to put points on the board. And quite simply, if you look at all of the stats, our underlying numbers are really, really good. We are doing some really, really good things, but we're still quite a long way away in terms of points on the board, which means that it might be fine margins, it might be very small details, but we are still quite a distance from where we wanted potentially to be in our second season. And that doesn't mean that can change, because things are very tight in the league, but they won't change if you don't put Bournemouth away, if you don't go ahead and beat Fulham. So Fulham beat us comprehensively away last season. That was one of our poorest performances. We need to rectify things like that. Perform against Fulham, win the game. Perform against Bournemouth, win the game. We then play Chelsea. Chelsea. I've got Chelsea PTSD, like a lot of Tottenham fans, because I'm old enough to remember when Chelsea weren't very good, and then all of a sudden Chelsea were very good, and it's very annoying. Then we've got Rangers, an away game. I do think we need to go up there. I think we'd probably be at the stage where we need to put out a strong team. It all depends what we do against Roma, of course. But in such a busy period, ideally, do your best against Roma. Get the Roma game out with a win. And again, every time you win one, we put less pressure on the next one in the Europa League. But we'll see kind of what the connotations are in a few games' time. We've then got Southampton. Do not lose that game. Southampton, the Conte rant, if we go back to it, Dr. Tottenham, all of these things are set up for us to, lose to Southampton, who, they're having a difficult season. Aaron Ramsdale, man of the match, 50 saves, and they win it 1-0 with a set piece. So let's not do that. Let's show that consistency of performance, but we've got to get the points on the board. So these are the ones that I'm really highlighting that we need to get over the line. Then we've got Man United in the Carabao Cup, and it's a cup, and we want to win a cup, right? So there's no easing off. That's one of those games that, again, I want to see consistency of performance, but all that matters in that game is the result, because it's a cup game. And it's knockout now, it's not league phase, so it doesn't really matter. If we have a stinker that day and win, fine, I'll take it. I'm not too proud to take that. I am not as ideologically focused as Ange is on, if we don't play well, we don't deserve it and we go home with nothing. No, do everything you can, get a performance out there, play well, do the things that the coaching staff are setting us up to do, but get the result, get over the line, start to show that level of kind of aggressively wanting to get over the line, whatever it takes. That would be a step forward, a huge step forward for Tottenham Hotspur Football Club, because I don't feel we've had that for, well, I don't even know when we did have that. It was a hint of it under Pochettino, I think. So get over the line, beat Man United, go through to the semis, and then we play Liverpool, and we'll talk about that in more detail when that game comes around, because so much is going to happen in the intervening period. But Liverpool look like they're absolutely coasting their way to this season's Premier League title. Obviously, Man City will wake up at some point and give them a run, and you can never write off that lot down the road. So, to put that all in a box, real consistency of performance, beat the teams we should be beating. We need to put points on the board. I want to see an elevated level of performance in the Europa League. A win against Roma would really help us going forward. Man City game, performance, let's see where the result goes. Chelsea game, performance, let's see where the result goes. And then we'll see what happens when we get to Liverpool and where we're going to be with that. We've obviously got a huge amount of injuries at the moment, which is really going to affect this period. But this is the point where players need to step up. We've talked about Archie Gray. We want to see Archie Gray playing the 6 where he hasn't played this season. Hopefully he gets minutes, and hopefully he comes in and starts to show some of that, huge potential that we've paid a lot of money for. I want to see everybody stepping forward. Your first point is my individual performance needs to be there. I need to beat my direct opponent. I need to impose myself on this game, and I need to do the things to help my team to win this individual game. And then as a collective, kind of putting that together. I don't know how well meshed that group of players is at the minute. The inconsistency tells me that it's not very advanced, and therefore it's kind of, if you can get the 11 to 15 kind of players, 16 players that will play in every single game, really, really performing as individuals, that will build a little bit of that cohesion. And then you kind of, if you're getting the results, you start to build ahead of steam. You get that momentum, and that will help despite having injuries and having players unavailable. It's definitely a time for us to step forward. It's definitely a time for us to show that we can do that over a period of time. And again, we will falter. We will have defeats in that time. We will have poor results. We will do things that send us as fans into meltdown. But I just want to see that we are stepping forward. Go on a run of performances. There are key games that we need to get over the line and get points on the board, or move ahead in the Europa League or in the Cup, or qualify for the next round of the Cup. But put on a run of performances. If we don't put on a run of performances and we're getting results that will paper over some cracks, and we'll probably all be quite happy, we'll be moving up the league, it'll be great. But then we'll just get hit really, really hard with another setback. The setback will come, which will be an inevitable kind of consequence of not actually doing the things that we need to do. So put on consistent levels of performance. Step forward. Be the player who makes a difference. Have we got that in our group of players? Are they hungry? Are they dying to get results for this football club? This is what I really want to see. And what I often feel about our players is they don't necessarily think about legacy, because it's really hard to do in the moment, right? When you're there and you're doing things. But every poor performance, every defeat to Ipswich, every first win for a club against Tottenham Hotspur, that's your legacy. You played in that game, and maybe no one will ever look at it in 5 years' time, but that's your legacy. That's the legacy you leave behind. You earn your money, you buy your houses, you play for your football clubs, and you get your glory moments that you can talk about in 20 years at events where they invite you to speak. But your legacy is also that poor performance and that defeat to the team that hadn't won a game all season. That's your legacy. How much are you willing to die for your own legacy and for this football club? I really, really want to see that level of passion, because we as fans, we've got no choice. That's how passionate we are. That's how we feel. And you'd love to see that from a group of players who really are dying for the badge, to get over the line, to get 3 points in every game. That's really what we want to see. So let's see what we can do. We'll find out a bit more about injury news pre-game, but it looks like Mickey's not ready. So Radu, step up. You've done really well in the Prem. You've struggled in the Cups. Let's see what you can do. This is your moment. Could be that Kuti's also unavailable. So we're going to have a much changed defensive unit, but we've done that before and we've been okay. So we draw on that, and we do the best we can. Again, performance over result. Got going forward. A couple of other bits. The Bentancur appeal. Tottenham, as ever, you're tone deaf. What are you doing? What was said was wrong. The defence is laughable. Or if the defence is the truth, then everything you said, all the apologies, all the the in-house training, all the stuff with Sonny and Bentancur at the time was all rubbish. So you've shot yourselves in the foot, and then going to appeal against it, just leave it alone. Like, at best, we get one game back of Bentancur. Is it really worth it? Is it really worth that? I don't think so. But as ever, Tottenham, terrible kind of decisions to do things, and just make ourselves a very hard club to support sometimes. I mean, you just think, why are you doing that? Doesn't make a lot of sense for the sake of one game versus the way it makes us look as a football club. Take it seriously, take it on the chin, move forward. That's what most fans would want, versus I think very few who are like, no, let's appeal, and that one game will make it. It won't make all the difference. One game is not going to make all the difference to our season, and all this time spent behind the scenes doing it, and all the money that's going into legal fees to do it, not worth it from my perspective anyway. And then very lastly, the rebrand. Should we care? Maybe. Do I care? No. Again, I can totally see why some supporters get really, really angry, because it feels like there's a movement away from history and tradition at Tottenham Hotspur, and we're more than just football now, and lots of people don't like that because it hasn't translated to success on the pitch. And I get that, and I understand that, and we all want our statue of Bill Nick, and we all want our gates back. Because that's what we grew up with, and all Tottenham really have, apart from a fancy stadium and a beautiful training ground, is our history, because we've achieved so little in such a long period of time, and we want that history recognised. I've got a suspicion that the plan history has always been to have some success and then to do bits and pieces when we have success, but since we never have success, they never get to the point of being able to announce the statue, etc., etc. But regardless of that, that's just my speculation. Do I really care about taking the Tottenham Hotspur from underneath the badge? No, I don't. If it works better for digital media, and that's how most people consume football nowadays, fine. That is what it is. The proof of the pudding for me is in whether in any way this rebranding has a positive effect to what we do on the pitch, which I think is what a lot of people argue anyway. So I can see why people are getting upset, but if you're arguing that all the NFL and the F1 and the stuff that we do and the concerts, you're upset about it because it doesn't lead to anything, this rebrand may or may not have any impact whatsoever on the future of the football club and our success on the football pitch. But if it does positively affect it, then we can look back on it and say, fine, well done. It grew our brand, and our logo became more recognizable, and that led to revenue, and that led to X. Or it didn't do anything. It's very unlikely to negatively impact what happens on the football pitch. But fans are perfectly entitled to feel the way they feel about the kind of the sanitizing of the football club and the erasure of our history. And we should be within our rights to talk about where is our history. We want to see that represented by the club. But we will quickly forget that, when there's an open top bus parade in June, because we've got a trophy. Or two or three. So anyway, glass half full. Let's see how we get on the weekend. Consistency of performances going forward. Who are our leaders? Who's taking this by the scruff of the neck? Who wants to drive Tottenham Hotspur forward over the next month? Because we've got a lot of games. That's it. Let's see how we get on tomorrow. Have a great weekend, everyone. Speak soon. Bye.